All right, so shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I'm start off by saying Brakathon, Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah. And I want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Kakadash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. And shout out to the Hope Elect. Start with the 144,000, shalom. All right, so real quick, Lord willing, I want to, not going to make this a long one. I want to go into, so I was watching the live lesson earlier as I was on the road and, just listening to it, listen to the elder Apostle Hart, and, the elder bishop, and Elder Apostle Gabar had said, when they was going to, they was talking about how, like, the lifespan, at first it used to be, I think it was at 1,000 years, then went like 120 years and whatnot, lifespan basically, so like, let me take the retainers out. But, lifespan basically, it's shortened over the years, right? And, now that, the lifespan, the Most High blessed us with now, was that in Psalms talks about, we're blessed with 70 years, or a lifespan expectancy is 70 years, we're blessed if we get 80, if we reach 80, right? And we know that now is because, well, for one, we're in this this wicked, horrible, polluted system. Our body decays every day because they was going into how, that we become weak now, but the spirit of Habashan Shah strengthen us. We're weak because, like, the food, the climate, how things, the disease, all these things that, as this Esau kingdom, this dirty, filthy, polluted kingdom, right? It makes us weak, right? But also, with us, being these corrupted bodies, right? And life expectancy changed because why? Right? And the main point when we go into the lesson, life expectancy changed because why? Right? Because sin, right? Let's go to the book of James real fast. Right? This is James. And the other apostle, Gabar, he quoted a lot of these precepts, right? And I got a few other precepts that I'm gonna bring out as well. Right? This is James 1 and right? James 1 and 15, right? It says, I start verse 14. It says, every man is tempted when he's drawn away with his own lust and enticed, right? It says, then when lust hath conceived, it brings forth sin. And when it is finished, bring forth death. So what is sin? Sin is transgression of the law, right? Let me see. I think that's in 1 John. Bear with me. 1 John 3. Yeah, right here, 1 John 3 and 4, right? It says, whoever committed sin transgresses also the law, for sin is a transgression of the law. So that's breaking the law, right? And we're not able to keep the laws and commandments perfect because we're in these corruptible bodies, right? Going all the way back to when Adam went off. When Adam went off, he brought sin onto when he brought death into us all, right? Before I go to Romans, I want to go to 1 Corinthians real fast. And the main point is, just going into, that, we're going to be changed, right? That's why now we're not judged by the law. We're judged, we judged by faith and grace, right? Having that faith and grace, how about Shah? Having the spirit. Ultimately, the elect is already ordained, right? The ones that are going to be saved, they already ordained, right? But we're not servants unto, matter of fact, just flowing to the spirit. So excuse me if I'm around. Let's see. Servants unto righteousness. That's in Romans 6. Right? This is Romans chapter 6 and verse 16, right? I actually started at verse 14. It says, for sin shall not have dominion over you. It says, for you are not under the law, but under grace, right? Because we say by faith and grace, right? It's like, I don't know why notifications keep popping up. It says, what then shall we sin because we are, come on, man. It says, what then shall we sin because we are not under the law, but under grace? Y'all forbid, meaning just because we're not judged by law, don't mean we should just go off and just sin just because, right? It says, know ye not to that to whom ye yield yourselves service to obey, right? No, you need to know who you need to serve. Yield meaning stop. Yield meaning it's like what's the definition of the word yield, right? Who you should stop and obey. Like what should you do? Should you obey righteousness or unrighteousness, right? Let's just turn this on real fast. Like for notification. Look at the definition real fast. I don't want to say it wrong, right? It says produce or provide, right? Let's see. to produce, result, surrender, control, or give up an asset, right? So who you should stop and like who you should surrender to, who you should yield to, right? So know ye not that to whom ye yield yourselves, right? So who you should stop and serve, who you should serve righteousness or you should serve sin, right? Because we're not under the law. It don't mean just live in sin, right? Let's continue reading on. It says, his servants, you are his servants, right? Ye are to whom ye obey, whether of sin unto death or obedience unto righteousness, right? And that's why we're going to be changed. That's why beginning with the elect, they're going to be changed. Why? Right? Because they give obedience unto righteousness. We know sin, with the sin, it brings forth death, right? So those ones who just live in sin, who yield, who surrender to sin just because, right? Or those ones who live in iniquity, living their ways of Babylon, living the ways of this kingdom, right? Those are it's going to be death that reigns on them, right? That's why, and we're going to go into 1 Corinthians 15 as well, but that's why, some of us are going to be changed, right? He said we should not all sleep. We're going to bring that out, right? That's another precept that the elder brought out, right? We should not all sleep because we're not all going to die. A lot of, the 144,000 is going to overcome that destruction, that death that's going to come upon this place, right? And after that, we're going to be changed to spiritual bodies, right? And we're going to be made perfect. We ain't going to be in this corruption no more. This corruption, right? It's going to inherit incorruption. I mean, we're going to be changed and reincarnated into perfect bodies, right? So there's going to be no more sin, right? But the first Adam brought this sin, right? And there's another point I want to touch on, right? I don't know the title lesson yet, but the first Adam brought this sin, brought death into everybody, which we're going to bring out. But that same spirit, which is SIGH&CRY, right? That same spirit, which is in SIGH&CRY, going to bring forth righteousness, going to bring forth immortality, right? So it says in verse 16 again, it says, know ye not to whom ye yield yourselves, servants to obey. His servants ye are to whom ye obey, whether of sin unto death or obedience unto righteousness. But power be thanked that ye were the servants of sin, but ye have obeyed from the heart, that from doctrine which was delivered unto you. Being then made free from sin, ye became servants of righteousness, right? Because how? SIGH&CRY has sacrificed. SIGH&CRY came and laid down, so now we're not judged by the law, right? We made perfect through our sufferings. Us enduring and purging not the way, purging not lust, suffering, doing these things, right? That, purging not the evil way, right? That's why Most High even allowed Adam to go off. The creature was subject to vanity. We were made to go off. But only a few, that 144,000 who are going to remain focused onto the will of SIGH&CRY, who are going to stay focused on the narrow passage. SIGH&CRY do that, right? That's why he said it the way it was, right? Because everybody wasn't going to get it. Everybody wasn't going to stay on it, right? But the elect, they would strive to push. They would strive for it, right? Only man who walked earth perfect was SIGH&CRY. That's why Paul understood it, right? Paul understood it, it's not me that sins, sin that dwells within me. That's why we're in this corruption, but we're going to be made incorruptible, right? We're going to be made immortal, right? So, let me see that real fast. Let's see. First Adam. KJV should be, 1 Corinthians 15. It's all in the same chapter, right? This 1 Corinthians 15, right? I started verse 40, actually, right? It says, there are also celestial bodies and bodies terrestrial, right? I don't want to say celestial is like heavenly bodies, like spiritual bodies, right? Real fast. Yeah, celestials are the spiritual body, and terrestrial like earthly bodies, this flesh that we're in, right? It says, there are also celestial bodies and bodies terrestrial, but the glory of the celestial one and the glory of the terrestrial one is another, because why? This flesh is going to be destroyed, right? This corruption is going to be destroyed and done away with. The spiritual body is going to live forever. We're going to be made immortal. There's going to be no more sin. If there ain't no more sin, there's going to be no more death. That's all. Our body ain't going to decay. Our body ain't going to get old, right? We're going to live forever. But now we can't, because why? We're sold under sin. But we're going to get into that, right? It says, therefore, we're sold under sin in these bodies. That's why we walk in the spirit. We don't walk in the flesh, because the flesh can be done away with, but the spirit going to live forever, right? It says, there is one glory of the sun and another glory of the moon and another glory of the stars, for one star different from another star in glory. So also is the resurrection of the dead. It is sown corruption. It was raised in corruption. And SIGH&CRY was the one who did this, right? He was in the flesh, and he was raised to a spiritual body, right? He was took from that corruption and raised in incorruption. I mean, he didn't go off in the flesh, right? He didn't go off in the flesh, but he's never going to die again. He's never going to corrupt again. His body ain't going to never be corrupt again, because he's going to live forever. SIGH&CRY is an example for this, right? example for that, right? It says, it is sown in dishonor, it is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness, it is raised in power. Right? Because we're in weakness and dishonor right now, but we're gonna be raised into glory and to power. Right? We're gonna be made. We're gonna be gods. Right? We're gonna be made like we're gonna be gods in the kingdom of Yahweh. Right? That's what God means, power. Right? Elohim, right? The powers, the gods, right? Because we were those angels that helped Yahweh even create the earth. We're going to get back into that, right? We was known back then. We was known as sons of power because we didn't go off. We're going to get back to that, right? It said, it is sown a natural body. It is raised a spiritual body, and actually this is an example of Yahweh, right? Because he's a natural body in flesh, but he was raised as a spiritual body, right? Raised from dead is spiritual body, right? Yahweh Shai is an example for that, right? He said there's a natural body, there's a spiritual body, and Yahweh Shai showed that, right? But he said, as is written, that is so is written, it's the point. The first man, Adam, was made a living soul. The last Adam was made a quickening spirit, meaning what? Because Yahweh Shai and Adam, right, same spirit, right? And the last Adam, which was Yahweh Shai, he was made a quickening spirit, right? He's a spirit. He's raised. His spiritual body was raised, right? He's up with the Father, right? He said, howbeit, that was not first which is spiritual, but that which is natural. And afterward, that which is spiritual. The first man on earth, the first man is of the earth, earthy. The second man is the Lord from heaven. Who is that? Yahweh Shai, right? That's Yahweh Shai, right? So when we go down, matter of fact, before I read that, let's go to Romans, right? Chapter 5. Let's read verse. We'll start right here, verse 12, right? It says, wherefore, by one man sin entered into the world, by Adam, when Adam went off. Right? Slacky. Hold up right quick. Hold up right quick. Slacky for that, right? But it says, wherefore, by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin. And so death passed upon all men for that all have sinned, because when Adam went off, right, death ran into everybody, right? Sin was in that. But another point too in that, Yahweh Shai allowed, it's like Yahweh Shai allowed Adam to go off, so therefore we can know the wrong from right. And now we know from wrong from right, whom we yield to obey. Should you obey sin or should you obey righteousness? But we're served unto righteousness. We strive for righteousness. And we've been made perfect through that suffer. We suffer these things. We go through these things. Whatever it takes. If it ain't Yahweh, we get away from it. And it's a lot of suffering, but that might cause suffering in this world because we're not of this world. So we're going to have it hard. It's not going to be a walking apart for us. That's why we got to keep our patience, right? But it says, for until the law, sin was in the world, but sin is not imputed when there's no law. Nevertheless, death reigned from Adam to Moses, even over them that had not sinned, after the similitude of Adam's transgression, who is the figure of him that was to come, right? Who is the figure who is to come? Yahweh Shai, that same spirit. Now we delivered. Now we're gonna be made. Now we're gonna be made incorruptible, right? Let's look right here. I want to go to Romans 8 and it's like it. I want to say it's Romans 7. I want to read real fast. Right here. Just want to read a quick precept real fast. Yeah, right here, Romans 7:20, it says, now if I do that, I would not. It is no more that I do, but sin dwelleth in me, because we in these corruptible bodies, right? So that sin dwelleth in us, right? But that's why we're going to be changed from these corruptible bodies. It's like it. Let's see. Bear with me. Right here, Romans 8:20 down to verse 21. It says, for the creature was made subject to vanity, not willing by reason of him who has subject the same in hope, because we was made to go off, right? He said, but because the creature itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption unto the glorious liberty of the children, and in Hebrews that children's sons, the liberty of the children of power, right? Because we're going to be made incorruptible. We're going to be delivered from this bondage of corruption, because it's sin that dwells within us, right? But we're going to be delivered from this place, so we're going to live for eternity. We're going to live forever, right? And let's go into that. Right, so we can close out with. Like I said, I'm gonna make it so long, right? Just want to touch a few points that hit me in the spirit as I watched the elders. I want to go into, and they spoke a lot about it as well at the camp. They spoke a good bit about it as well, right? So, that's 1 Corinthians 15, verse 51 says, "Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep. We shall be changed. Meaning, we're not all gonna die. We're gonna be changed to spiritual bodies. We're gonna be beamed up to the chariot and to spiritual bodies, man. Right? He says, in a moment, in the twinkle of an eye, at the last trumpet, for the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed, because we're going to be delivered from this bondage of corruption. Right? It says, for this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality. Right? It says, so when this corruptible shall have put on incorruption, and this mortal have put on immortality, then shall be brought to pass that saying that it is written, death is swallowed up in victory, because there ain't going to be no more death. We're going to be spiritual bodies. And I'm actually going to read Hebrews chapter 8, because a lot of commandments are written in our hearts and minds. Right? So it's going to be no more sin. It ain't going to be no more sin. It's going to be righteousness is going to be in us. We're going to be made righteous, and there's going to be a kingdom of righteousness. Right? There ain't going to be no more death. Right? Because how do we die? Right? Transgressing the law. Sin bring forth death. Right? James chapter 1, we read that sin bring forth death. Right? Sin was brought through Adam, but also the same that same spirit is going to bring back righteousness. Right? Going to bring back immortality as well. Right? It says, oh death, where is thy sting? Oh grave, where is thy victory? And the sting of death is sin, and the strength of sin is the law. Right? But we're not judged by the law. We say by faith and grace. It don't mean we do whatever we want to. We're not judged by the law. Right? We striving under righteousness. We pushing under the spirit of Yahweh Shem Shah, walking that spirit, because we're going to be changed. Right? We're going to be changed. Right? It said, but thanks be to Yahweh, which give us the victory through our Lord Yahweh Shah Mashiach. Because why? That same one who brought forth Yahweh Shah, right? Adam's same spirit, that same one who brought forth sin, right? That same spirit is going to bring forth righteousness, going to bring forth immortality. We say we're delivered from death, right? We're delivered from death. Why I say you should not all sleep, right? Because Yahweh Shah is going to come deliver us from this place, right? We're going to be delivered from this corruption. He said, therefore, my beloved brother, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. For as much as you know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. Because the work that we're doing, the suffering we're doing, everything we're going through is not in vain. We're going to overcome death. We're going to be changed to spiritual bodies, man. We're going to be delivered from this place. We're going to be delivered from all this corruption. We're going to be delivered from these corruptible bodies, this corruptible ass kingdom. We're going to be delivered from all of it, right? And the law's commandments are written in our hearts and minds, right? And I said I was going to read it, and I read it, we got time. This Hebrews chapter 8. Right here in 10, just to the point, it said, for this is the covenant, the second covenant. Was the only thing happened in the second covenant is Yahweh shall land down for us. We're not in the second covenant yet. Right? In the second covenant, there's gonna be no more sin. Right? People, we still sinning, we still going on, we still in this corruption. Right? It said, for this covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says the Lord, I will put my laws into their mind and write them in their hearts, and I will be to them a power, they shall be to me a people. Right? So we're gonna be written in our hearts and minds. There's gonna be no more sin, man. There's going to be no more sin. We're going to be, let me read Romans. Read Romans 8 and 20 and 21 again. It says, because the creature itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption unto the glorious liberty of the children of power, man. So we're going to be delivered from the bondage of corruption. Lord willing, that'll be titled lesson, man. We're going to be delivered, right? We're going to be made immortal, man. We're going to live forever through the spirit of power, Yahweh Shem Shah. That's why you got to strive in the spirit, because this flesh is going to decay. This flesh will be done away with. Right, everything about it. That's why the scripture tells us we weren't redeemed by corruptible things. We're redeemed by immortal things that can't be taken away from. That's the spirit of Yahweh Shem Shah. Only Yahweh Shem Shah take that spirit away from you. And when you get the spirit taken away from you, you know you a zombie when you dead. Right, you cooked, man. Because the spirit quickens, the spirit brings life. Our life is hid. We focus. That's why Colossians 2. We focus on things. Colossians 3. Matter of fact, we focus on things above, man. Because our life is hid with Mashiach Yahweh Shah. So with that being said, Lord willing, hope this lesson was edifying and exalting. Right, and I want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Kakadash. Double honors unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. And shout out to the whole free elect, starting with the 144,000. Shalom.